Hi everyone, I'm here with good old friend Ryan Cramer. You've been in the industry for 3 years or more.
Longer.
Yeah, I remember you said like in Amazon, she said Lisa Kinski with it's like dog years. So 3 years in Amazon could be many more years in the whole industry.
Yep.
So today we're going to talk about a little bit like I'm a logistic, you're in logistic. A lot of times we get inquiries about stuff that's related to Frisbi. Sometimes Frisbi gets emails related to that. I just want to give it like to my audience and people that are listening to these videos is to get a clear understanding what Frisbi does and how they really help sellers accelerate from just being an Amazon seller here in the US and just be a seller all over the world. So it's a pleasure to see you and good to see you.
Appreciate it. And the quote was, and it's trending more than I thought it would, is 1 year feels like dog years. So 1 year would be like 7. So I've been in e-commerce and Amazon combined for 8 years. So I guess I'm way older than I look on my face. So, or at least it feels that way. So that's the quote that is going crazy all over our space, I guess you can say. But yeah, it feels like that for some instance. Hopefully not that for everyone.
That's hilarious. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I've been a seller for 7 years and logistics for 6 years. So yeah, it's been a very long time breathing the Amazon air every day.
Exactly.
Amazing. So what we're going to talk about today is a little bit more detail, like what Frisbi does. Some people saying Frisbi just does shipping, but that's not the case. You guys do way more than that.
We do.
If you could give me a little bit of an idea what Frisbi does.
Yeah. So to your point, we've been around since 2010. So we've been around again, if you're doing the dog year math, it's been around quite a bit, but in any sort of software logistics space, we've been around since 2010, which is quite a bit. So we used to be called First Shore Shipping. In September, we transitioned to the name Frisbi, which is a lot shorter and more simple, fun to use. The reason we did that was to make it more simple and straightforward. Again, if you think about Frisbi, going back and forth between spaces, a lot more simple to think about instead of the physics behind it. Anyone can do it. So that's where we brought the name Frisbi to play. But the reason why we got rid of shipping because we do more than that. We're a global expansion company helping sellers get into different markets via FBA or other vessels and marketplaces, because around the world, there's 200 plus international marketplaces. Amazon just happens to be one of the largest ones, taking 7 out of 25 top international marketplaces in the world. So that's the easiest one to get started in as a brand. And my job and our job as a company is to make your brand become a global brand. And a lot of people, when they think about it, their head starts to hurt. They're like, I have to do this again. I put so much hard work and effort into building my brand just for the United States or just for this one market. Now you're telling me to do it for up to 20 more. That's crazy. But our job is to make it a lot more simple, overcome those barriers, and help answer any sort of questions that sellers might have when it comes to growing their business.
So a typical question that a seller will ask, like, why do I need Frisbi? Like, I could just go to DHL's website, I could go to UPS, I could go to FedEx, purchase my labels. And I know that that's not the case. It's not that simple. So if you could explain why you need someone like Frisbi to help you with all the other things related to the shipping, not the actual shipping label. There's way more to that.
Sure. Yeah. So when you grow your brand, obviously you're probably getting hammered from lots of different angles, right? Amazon's reaching out to you and their global sales team. You're kind of being asked about, how do I get VAT or taxes, or how do I establish an import of record? Yes, this really long list of questions that people start to ask you before you can get even started selling, and it becomes really overwhelming. So we actually have established a checklist for all of our sellers who are trying to get into certain markets for their product or for their brand. So if they're testing the waters in the likes of Canada or Australia or UK, Germany, Italy, wherever that might be around the world, each country has its own requirements and regulations for not just your category or product type, but also just for packaging, for listing, for what you can say in a listing. If there's any sort of certificates or authorizations need to have to ship that category, that kind of product into those countries, where can I ship it to that's going to be cost effective, and then making sure it doesn't get stuck at customs or at the border or anything of that sort. So we actually do a lot of that. I call us a snowplow. We kind of clear that path for you. So it's a lot easier on your end and your logistics team or your agency to be able to start selling into those countries. So we really do the front end of the work, and we talk a lot about fact finding before a seller gets started into some of these markets. And again, you can start selling in Australia in 1 to 2 days. It's pretty easy. But the likes of Japan, for example, are also very difficult because of certain country requirements, regulations, depending on your category or product type. So that's where we as an asset can help you out. Plus, in the shipping side of things, since we are a direct partner with UPS, FedEx, DHL, and of the highest partnership that they can have as a partner carrier, we actually pass on these great rates and discounts, anywhere from 60 to 80% off of small parcel delivery. And we help you be able to get your goods into a fulfillment center pretty quickly, right? There's 2 different kinds of ways to get inventory into a fulfillment center. There's trucking, full container loads, as you guys know, and then there's small parcels. So that's smaller items, a lot lighter items, up to pallets, and you're putting those into fulfillment centers with a partner carrier, and those get checked in right away. You don't have to schedule out a time in order to do that. So once it's sent there and it's sent to a fulfillment center, it gets checked in right away and you get your inventory available to you to start selling. So that's how our little niche, if you will, where we fit in sellers.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really insightful. What's the size seller that you would recommend? Like, hey, like, when is it time to start expanding? Is there a time actually? Yeah, I know sellers that are still today, like they're sellers only in the US, and I ask them about the global expansion. Like you said, like a lot of them are scared. They just don't know. The minute they find out that there's a simpler solution, they'll probably go for it. But like, when do you feel like is the right time for a seller? It's like, hey, we're doing well in the US. Let's start expanding international.
So Amazon is putting a lot of their expansion efforts. They're leading with money, and they're also where their efforts are being put in right now. So Amazon, if it was up to them, they would want everyone's catalogs to be everywhere all at once, and that would be fantastic for them. That's ultimately what they want to do. So you as a seller, if you're getting emails from Amazon, if you've been getting phone calls about from the global expansion team from Amazon, you're more than likely ready. You've been established. You have a selling record that's probably around the likes of a year or so that's been successful, consistent, not just trying certain items or products. They're probably going to keep an eye on it. So that would be like an indicator for you start to get bugged or pinged by Amazon global sales team. That's one indicator. I would normally suggest people to start to think about it after a full year of selling, just to understand and get your basis for their brand, whether they're established in the United States or they're in their own market, whether it be like UK or Australia, whatever marketplace you feel comfortable with, because the effort that you put into the United States, it's not doubling it when you go to a different market, but there will be work, there will be timelines. You must have all that education up front when it comes to knowing how fast you can expand to a market. Some products, you can get up and running in a few weeks. Other ones might take a few months, just depends on, again, category, product type, and also which market you're looking to enter. But that's what we're educating sellers on, is how fast you can do it. That way you can put it into your planning, your growth plan. If you're looking for expansion opportunities, those are the things you need to be aware of, instead of coming to us and getting the fun emails that I do saying, hey, we want to start selling in Japan tomorrow. It's not going to happen. It's not feasible. It's not how that works. You have to have all these documents in order to be starting to sell. So education first and foremost, knowing when it is, being aware of if Amazon's reaching out, those are probably good indicators. More than likely, it's going to be a seller who's pretty consistent, selling for at least a year. But you can use this for any given time for sourcing, samples, anything like that from your supplier, manufacturer. That's what we can work with people throughout all those kinds of phases, if you will.
What would you say like is the percentages, like, or the easiest? Let's say like you want to start selling globally. Obviously, you're not going to start selling tomorrow in 10 marketplaces, or like which ones are the go-to places, or which one are the easiest for an Amazon seller to start navigating to start selling globally?
Good question. So as a new seller, you automatically get your account turned on to NARF, or North American Remote Fulfillment. So your account automatically, once you start selling, is enabled to fulfill anything in North America. So that would be Canada or Mexico. And those are the easiest ways to get started. Amazon statistics say if you start to sell directly in Amazon, meaning my product I'm putting into fulfillment center in Canada, sellers on average are seeing 4x growth when it comes to what they might be selling, through NARF versus a program and selling directly into an industry or like into a marketplace like Canada. So there's statistics that follow that make sound really good. On average, we've seen sellers that are anywhere from 5 to 15 or 20x, or excuse me, 5 to 20% of what they're selling in the United States you can make in Canada. That's again dependent on category, product, things like that. But those are the easiest ones to get into. I would say a lot of natural progression. You can start to see people going into Europe. Again, UK and Germany are very popular because they're the largest two in there. But it's really with Amazon enabling a lot of sellers now with their data and analytics, the Product Opportunity Explorer, now it's free in Seller Central. You can actually start to look at your catalog and see your search queries, your top performing searches in those marketplaces, if they're being relevant and they're being searched for in each of those markets in Europe, for example, or in Australia or Japan. So you can actually start to do the research ahead of time to make that intelligent and that smart choice. I always say follow by data, and make sure you follow what that's telling you. If there's people are searching for your product and you want to make sure that you're meeting that demand, you want to do as much research ahead of time as possible.
Very interesting. So saying that basically Canada is probably the first one, the easiest one, and then UK, Germany is the second one.
Yep.
Legalities like taxes, VAT, compliance, stuff like that. Is Canada easier as well than UK and Germany, or sort of similar process?
Yeah, it kind of depends. Canada, you have a non-resident number or an NRI number selling into Canada. Again, when it comes to value-added tax, I think the misnotion is people just think it's like sales tax. Value-added tax is something that is baked into the cost of your product, right? So if I'm in the UK or if I'm in the United States and I see $20, I'm buying a product, I'm going to pay tax on top of it. So it can be another $1.60 or something like that. Depends
Right.
on where you're buying that sales tax. So it's on top of where you're buying it for. In Europe or wherever VAT is being, collected, it's actually built into the cost. So if I'm a consumer in Europe and I'm looking at that same $20 or euros, that's actually going to be what I pay. It's $20 or 20 euros. As a seller, you have to make sure that your price actually reflects, because the tax is going to come on the back end of it, and you have to make up for that. So on top of it, it's baked within the cost. So it's when it's received and when you're collecting it, that's only the real difference. It's kind of paying after the fact with everything. So it's not different. It's just making sure all the products and places that you're selling in, just keeping on top of the schedules of when you have to purchase or pay for taxes and compensate for that. Because Amazon has a great way of working with sellers of, hey, we'll make sure that you can use our program and, pay it within your, whenever you get remitted with your payments. You can obviously work with third-party services that we work with as well, making sure that you stay on top of when you have to pay your sales tax and, get back some of the money they might have paid up front for it. So there's a lot of programs that just depends on the product type. Not more difficult.
Yeah.
It's just collected in different ways.
Right. So basically, if somebody needs more information to know, like if they're selling different categories of different products, I guess your team at Frisbi could help actually navigate them, or if not, they could go on Amazon, could basically navigate them to see if it's the right product to sell. With the That's amazing. That's great. We've had sometimes people like reach out. It was funny a couple weeks ago, like, how do you compete with Frisbi? I said, we don't. Like, I want to put that out there as well. It's like logistics is a big word.
Yeah.
So it has a lot in it, but we're not focused on global expansion at all. We're focused on US, anything imported to the US, anything needed to be warehoused in the US, anything needs to be trucked in the US. But anything getting outside of the US, it's usually where I always recommend you guys.
Sure.
So that's basically what I always try to make clear with people. It's like, we're not competition. Yeah, we're husband and wife working in the same industry, but we're not competition.
Very confusing. And I get that too. And that's not something that, again, we get confused all the time too, of like ocean freight, right? That's not something we handle either. So logistics, very big word of, we do small parcel delivery. We do, we do air shipments, and we partner with third-party carriers. You guys do a whole lot of other different things that would never, like, I would think of, wanting to take that on as a company. We're like, there's so many better people, more qualified, who do such a better job than what we would do with that. But we found our niche, and that's what we stick with.
Exactly.
But it's funny, they thought we were part of the same company or something of that sort. So I guess in the same family, it makes sense. We should be the company, but now we're separate.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. So last question would be, how do people reach out to you?
Yeah.
Where do they reach out? What's their best place to connect with you or with anyone at Frisbi that could help them expand?
So our website's really easy to remember. It's just frisbi.com, FRISBI.com. Very simple and straightforward. No dashes or anything like that. If you search for us on Google, you'll also find Frisbi. Just with an I, without an ease. But me directly, if you want to get in touch with me, it's Ryan@frisbi.com. And, if you just want to inquiry about, hey, this is even just like shopping around of like, what will the cost be if you're looking for, to have that emergency blanket, if you will, especially coming up in Q3, Q4 with a lot of sellers who did phenomenal during Prime Day. And they're like, hey, how do we get more inventory in there quickly? I need to get it in there in 2 to 3 business days. Well, that's what we do and what we handle. You pick up same day, you can get it into the fulfillment center, no problem. So that speedy and expedited service is kind of what we handle and what we deal with.
Right.
And then, but if people want to reach out to our team, it's just support@frisbi.com or check out our website and all the fun, cool education and content we're pumping out there, podcasts, webinars, things of that sort as well.
Amazing. Okay, it was great having you on. It's great talking to you, Ryan. It was good to see you, and hopefully I'll see you soon again.
Appreciate it.
Looking forward.